Hey everyone, I'm Noel from creationeffects.com, and this is the tutorial for using wolves for Adobe After Effects. This is the fourth animal released as part of the Beast series, with more to come soon. Already available is horses, elephants, and lions. And my goal with these templates is to give people a quick and easy way to make custom animal animations and in which they can control the animal's behavior even if they aren't experienced animators. I refer to these animals as 2D puppets because they're made from 2D images, but they're great as motion graphics elements or for adding to your 3D scenes. And if you like these kind of effects, you should definitely check out the Critter Collection series at creationeffects.com. You can make flocks of birds, or schools of fish, or swarms of insects, all in 3D, and everything can be customized so that you can create something for any kind of scene. So let's get on with the tutorial. This is an After Effects template, and it includes 3 adult wolves. So you can choose between the black, white, or brown coat colors. It comes with a bunch of preset movements to choose from, or you can move them manually using the controls. I'm going to start by showing you how to use the effect in the simplest scene possible, just to give you an idea of how it works. And then I'm going to explain the effect and kind of summarize how it's made. And then I'll explain some basic rules for duplicating wolves or copying wolves into a new comp. And then I'll go into customization. I'll go over the primary actions and how to transition from action to action. And then I'll go over the secondary actions. And lastly, I'll have some helpful tips on using the wolves. Alright, but first real quick, let's go over how to open this zip file correctly. If you're on Windows, you need to right click it and look for an option that says Extract All. And that should help prevent you from getting errors in After Effects. If you're on a Mac, you can just double click it to open. And then you can open the wolves.aep file in After Effects CC 2019 or later. Another option, if you're already working in a project and you want to bring the wolves into that project, you can just go to File and Import, then File, and just select the AEP file and open that up. And that'll import the entire project into a folder in your project panel. I'll delete that. So when you open the project, you're going to see some instructions here, and I'm going to go over these in a few moments. But let me open this white wolf, and I'm just going to walk you through the basic process of how this works, and I'll create a really simple scene. I've got this background image that I imported earlier, and I'm going to bring that in, put it behind my wolf. Maybe scale it down a little bit and move it up. Now I'll select the white wolf, and in my Effect Controls panel, which if you don't see, you can go to Window and find it down here. You've got a bunch of controls here for customizing the wolf. I'm going to open this first action here, and I'm going to make him walk. And I'll make him walk for 10 seconds. And if I play it back, you can see what that looks like. So he's just walking in place. So all we have to do is animate the layer to move across the frame to make it look like he's walking. So I'll select the layer and hit the P key to reveal the position property, and I'll go to the first frame. And also I should scale him down first. You can either scale him or move him back in Z space. So I'm at my first frame, and I would position him where I want him to start. I can just make it right here, and I'll add a keyframe for the position property, and then I'll go forward about 3 seconds, and I'll position him over here, and then we can play it back, and you can see that he's sliding forward as he walks, so he's moving a little bit too fast, and that's okay. You're gonna have to guess the speed, and you're probably not going to get it right on the first time, so we can just let me zoom in a little bit. We can either move this keyframe over to slow him down, or we can change the value of that keyframe. Let's just try that. Still sliding a little bit. And that looks pretty good. So you get the gist of it. There are other actions here, which I'll show you in a bit. So you might be making him walk, and then he would transition to a trot. And in that case, you're going to need more keyframes here because he's going to be moving at different speeds. And if you watch to the very end, I'll show you a trick on how to make that transition a little smoother as he changes speeds. And I should note that sometimes you're going to have paws that are sliding as they transition, and often that's going to be unavoidable. But usually these things are moving so fast you can't really notice it anyway. And of course, this is a really basic scene. There's all kinds of things you can do to make this better. You can bring in other 3D elements. You could always cover his feet with grass or something, and that would fix any sliding problems. You could add a camera and have the camera moving around. But I just wanted to show you the basics of how this works. So let me close that comp and I'll go back to the project panel. And I'll open up the brown wolf now. I'll select it and I'll go to my effect controls. So up top we have the primary action controls. This is how you make it do all the main actions like walk, trot, run, and so on. And down here we've got the secondary action controls where you can animate more minor movements like the mouth and the lips and the ears. And we've got a bunch of other effects down here, which if I hit the E key, we can see them. This one, all of these are turned off, and this is the only one that's turned on. So this is the main puppet effect, and it's what governs all of the movements of our wolf. In case you're not familiar with a puppet effect, I'm going to show you super quick what it does. I'm going to start a new comp. And I'll go in here and I'm going to find a wolf image to bring in. Okay, our puppet tool is up here. I'll click on that and then I'll just start clicking on the wolf. You can see when I did that, it created this mesh of lines, and I'll add a few more points to anchor these parts of the wolf in place so that they don't move. And I'll just drag on one of these pins and you can see how that warps the whole shape. If I go down here and open up the mesh inside the puppet effect and open up the form, you can see all the individual pins that I made. And if you open those up, you can see there's a position property here. So you could keyframe that if you wanted to. If you change this to advanced, it opens up a couple more properties like scale and rotation. So this is how the wolf is made. Let me go back. You can see we've got all of these effects that are turned off down here, and they're named after the primary actions. These are also puppet effects, and so if I hide that one and unhide this and then play it, you can see him trot. And if you look over here, these represent the keyframes that are on this effect, and you can't see them because the effect is collapsed, but you can see they only go up to about the 18th frame. But they're set to loop continuously, so he'll just keep trotting. So each primary action has its own puppet effect, but it's this main action that is grabbing all of the pin positions from these actions, from these effects down here, and it's applying them inside this main effect, and that's what we see. So that, depending on which primary action you've chosen up here, that's which effect down here it grabs that information from. So that's probably more information than most people need, but just in case you wanted to customize it, I wanted to let you know how it works. Now, this wolf layer, you can see by this icon, this is a pre-comp. So I can double click this and it opens up the pre-comp. And you can see we've got a few layers here for different body parts of the wolf. And they're all separate from each other because they all need to be animated independently. So we've got the outer legs and the main body, upper jaw, lower jaw. And then we've got a couple layers here that are hidden, target comp name and target layer name. So let me unhide those. And they say brown wolf, and these are referring to the comp brown wolf and the layer brown wolf, which is the comp we were just looking at in here, brown wolf. You can see our layer brown wolf. So a lot of the secondary actions on this layer, like opening the mouth, you can see that that is actually done inside this pre-comp, and it does that by using expressions. And those expressions are looking for this layer inside this comp. So it's important to know that, because if you ever change the name of the layer or change the name of the comp, you need to update the expressions. So let me give you an example. Let's say you've got a different comp. Let me start a new comp here named Forest. And you want to bring your brown wolf into there. So you would go into here, you'd copy it, you go to your Forest comp and you'd paste it. And let's say you also wanted to change the name to Wolf 1, like you've got a whole pack of wolves. All right, well, that's fine, except you need to update the expressions or you won't be able to change any of those secondary controls. So you can double click the pre-comp and unhide these two layers, and we're going to just use the text tool here to change this to forest and change this to Wolf 1. And you're probably going to get error messages here until you change it. So keep that in mind if you ever rename this layer, or if you ever rename your comp or put this layer into a different comp, you always have to update that. And let me show you another example. This is a little different. Let's say you wanted to make a pack of wolves, and let's say you wanted 2 brown wolves. So you would take this layer and duplicate it. So now we've got brown wolf 2, but they are both still made from the same pre-comp. And we want separate pre-comps for each so that we can animate them independently. So we would go into our pre-comps folder here, pre-comps and images, and inside brown wolf we can see our pre-comp, and we can just duplicate it. That's Command D or Control D on Windows. And now we need to connect this pre-comp with this new layer. So what we would do is select the layer down here and then select the pre-comp up here. And with them both selected, hold down the Alt or Option key and just drag that pre-comp right onto the layer. And that'll update the source of that layer. And you would still need to go into this pre-comp now and update your target layer name or your comp name if necessary. And of course, be sure to turn those layers off when you're done so you don't see them. So I'm back in the getting started instructions, and I just went over these 2 rules here. So let's go over the third one real quick. This one's really straightforward. It's talking about the effect order. So let's go to our brown wolf again, and I'll reveal the effects. And all it's saying is that these effects are in a certain order and they need to stay in that order. So if you ever add any effects like color correction, they just need to go below this last line here. All right, let's go over how to customize and animate this wolf. I'm going to go over these primary actions first. So the first control we see here is this flip checkbox. That just controls the direction that he's facing. And then we've got our first action. We looked at that earlier. Let's just set it to a walk. And first action duration, let's have him walk for 2 seconds. And let's add a second action this time. So we'll have him go from a walk to we'll have him do a trot, and let's also have him do that for 2 seconds. And yeah, why not? We'll add a third action. We'll have him jump. All right, so let's play that back and see what it looks like. So this first transition from walk to trot isn't very good, but the from trot to jump looks pretty good to me. Let's look at the first transition again. So that is to be expected. It's not usually going to look very natural on the first try, but that's why we've got these controls here. We can play with these values and try to find the most natural transition that we can. So let me break down what each of these do. Duration, he's going to walk for 2 seconds, and then at the 2 second mark, right here, he's going to start transitioning from this pose to a trot pose. And he's going to do that over a duration of 0.2 seconds. So this is our first to second transition duration. With my current frame rate, 0.2 seconds would be 6 frames. So if I go forward another 6 frames, he's transitioning, and this is the trot pose that he's transitioning to. So we can actually change this pose that he's transitioning to by adjusting this second action time shift. You can see it's at 0.45 seconds right now. So actually, if I reveal all the effects on here, I make this bigger, and I'll hide the main puppet effect and just go to my trot effect, and I can go forward 0.45 seconds, which is about 14 frames, I think. So this is our pose that we would be transitioning to. So by adjusting this time shift, we can actually choose which pose we want to transition to. And remember, we can also change the pose that we're transitioning from if we adjust this duration control on that first action. So between the two of those, if you just adjust them, so you can start with 0 and play it back. If that doesn't work, try 0.1 and try that. If that doesn't work, try 0.2 and maybe try something different up here. And it's usually not going to take very many tries before you find something that I think you'll be happy with. It's not that hard. All right, let's go over these secondary action controls now. A lot of these are pretty self-explanatory, so I'm going to go through them really quick. Let's look at the head position. I can raise the head like this, and now when he's walking, his head is higher. So these can be combined with whatever primary action you've chosen. And I was just dragging on this control, but probably the better way to do it, you can select this secondary action controls effect, and then you can see this little crosshair here on his head, and you can just click and drag that to wherever you want. And there's also a tilt. All right, tail position, you can move it up or down. If you go too far, it starts to warp. You can make him scared or sad. You can curl it a little bit. And then also, as long as this is selected, you've got this crosshair here, which you can just click and drag. Next, paw position. Let me reset this. Oh yeah, to reset any of these position controls, and I've written it down here, to reset them, click on the values and enter 0. So these values are always going to be way high in the thousands, but if you click on it and enter 0, that'll reset it to its original position. Okay, the paw position, same deal. You've got 4 different crosshairs for each paw, and you can move them forward or back. Let's close that. And breathing, you can control the intensity and the heart rate. Howl, you can bring his head up. And he's not actually howling because I think we have to update our target name. All right, so now you can see his eyes are closed, his ears are back, and his mouth is open. Mouth open, you can do that. Open it really wide. And then lip curl to make him more aggressive. You can move each ear independently, just forward or backward. The idea with that is so you can do a little ear twitch here and there. And let me just show you really quick how you would do that. I'll just add a keyframe for 0, and I'll go forward about 4 frames, and I'll move it up to like 50, and then I'll go forward another 4 frames and move it to -50, and then go forward, and we'll do like 20, go forward and do -3, and then go forward and bring it back to 0. And then you would normally want to select all those keyframes, right click them, go to Keyframe Assistant and choose Easy Ease, and that'll just make the motion a little bit more natural. And we'll play it back so you can see. Doing something simple like that, or just making his mouth open every now and then, or he can blink, stuff like that makes him a little more lifelike. Okay, then we've got the eye closing or opening, nose sniff. Don't want to go too far, it looks funny, but you can have him move his nose up and down. Body mass, you can make him fatter or thinner. And then shift weight, if he was climbing a hill or something, you can shift his weight. And sometimes I animate this shift weight when I'm having an animal stop. So I've animated his position so that he was moving, and then he's supposed to stop. And the layer has to stop completely, otherwise the feet will keep sliding forward. But sometimes that looks a little unnatural because he's got all this momentum and then all of a sudden he's just frozen. So sometimes I'll animate his weight to shift forward a little bit, and that helps make it more natural. Lower front or lower back, those can come in handy sometimes depending on what you're making. High angle perspective just raises these far legs up a little bit, so it's more like you're looking down. So that can be useful depending on where your wolf is in your 3D scene. And that's all the secondary action controls. So let's go over a few tips that I want to share with you. Things that I've learned with animating this wolf and the other animals that I think might be helpful to you. So let me talk about adding variation. let's say you're making a pack and you've got multiple wolves, and they're all walking together. It's a good idea to add some variation so they're not all looking like robots and walking in sync with each other. So there are some obvious things you can do. You can, raise the head so it's higher on some of them, or lower it on some of them. You could raise the tail, maybe open the mouth on one of them. You can change their body mass, but they're still going to be stepping in sync with each other. And with most actions, you can change that using this time shift control. But the first action, you'll notice, doesn't have that. So what you can do is just drag that layer over a few frames. Another thing you can do is change the speed of their action. I'm going to select a layer and hit the U key, and that brings up all the keyframes on all of these puppet effects, and there's a ton of them. And we just want the walk keyframes, which walk comes first, so they're right here. And if we select them all just by clicking and dragging a box around them, and you'll have to go down a ways and you'll be able to tell when they end, because the next actions keyframes are not going to be the same duration. All right, so when you have them all selected, you can spread them out or squeeze them in to make it slower or faster. All you do is hold down the Alt or Option key and click on any of these last keyframes and just drag them. So if I want to make it slower, I can just go like that. And he's still walking, it's just a slower walk. Now, if you wanted to make a change to the action, you can always edit these keyframes. So that is one way to customize, in case you're not getting all the control that you need using these controls. You can either edit the action, which will loop, or you could just go to the main puppet effect and here, and let me open up one of these pins. So if I open up the neck, I can adjust the position of that pin. One thing you don't want to do is click and drag on the pin. Just because of the expressions on here, it's not going to work. It's going to mess it up. So you just got to click and drag on that value. So you can make that part fatter if you wanted to, or you could rotate a little bit. And you could even keyframe these values. And all it will do is add or combine whatever motion or changes you make to the existing actions. Now, what if you wanted to make changes to the actual photos? Let me open up the pre-comp. You can do that, but there's a big but, and you know how I like big buts. So you can make changes to this wolf as long as the changes stay within the shape of the wolf. So you couldn't open up this image in Photoshop and add something to the wolf that comes up over here, like a saddle or a helmet, because that would go beyond this boundary of this shape. But you could overlay a texture on top of his fur or something like that, because that would be inside of the shape. And actually, I included a few images inside this extras folder. Some of those effects that you saw in the demo video, I included them here because why not? So we got this skeleton. You can just line that up like that and then hide the wolf behind it, and you've got a walking skeleton. Or the tattoo design. And even that glowing wolf that you saw, it's in here. All the comps are in there, then you can see how it was made. Okay, there's one final thing I wanted to show you to help make the transitions between primary actions a little smoother. You can see I've got this wolf crossing the street, and he's going from a run to a trot, and I've got my keyframe set up so that he's going the right speed for a run, and then he goes the right speed for a trot, but that transition is very abrupt. So it would be nice to smooth that out a little bit. So this is just a really quick lesson in the graph editor in After Effects. If we select our position property and click on this little icon here for the graph editor, this line represents the speed of our wolf. And since this line is horizontal and straight, this means that he's going at a constant speed. So he's going at around 4,000 pixels per second, then he's going at 1,000 pixels per second. But what we can do is change this into a curve and make that transition a little more gradual. from this speed to this speed. So we can select that middle keyframe, or you can do it in here. Just select the keyframe, right click, choose keyframe interpolation, and then for temporal interpolation, choose continuous Bezier and click OK. And then go back to your graph editor, and you can see it smoothed out this curve a little bit, but I think it's not going to be enough. So we can actually drag these little handles a little bit. And just to get this line back down to 4,000 pixels, we can move this a little further that way, move this. And that should look a little better. So the speed problem is fixed. It's much more gradual. You still notice a kind of abrupt change between run and trot in his paw movements and everything, but that's a significant improvement. So that is all I wanted to show you. I hope you like that wolf effect. Be sure to check out the other stuff at creationeffects.com. There's a whole bunch of creative templates and customizable effects there for After Effects users.